What's up, everyone? I hope you're having a great day today, and I hope you remember that Jesus Christ loves you. What we're going to do today is actually go over something that I felt God has shown me during our revival this past week, and it is, which finger? 3 reasons God uses death. You like that? That little 3 reasons God uses death. And I'm trying to hide it from you. I don't want to show all of my examples, but I feel that the first way that God can use death is not an optimistic way. It's actually one that you don't want to be accused of, right? And it is to get through you. What do I mean by that? God has a will. He has a plan. You can either be in that plan to help God, enact his plan into action, or you could be in the way. And if you're in the way, God can move you out of the way. God can take you out and say, you're out of here. I need to do something, and you're in my way. So we don't want that to happen to us, right? And we might think that means, that's for people who don't believe in God, but that's actually, I feel, a lot of Christians that aren't using their spiritual gifts. Paul talks about our spiritual gifts that we have been given to edify the church and to help grow the church. And when we don't use those, and we have all the potential in the world to spread the gospel and to grow the church, and to strengthen that church, I feel that God can take you out of the way. And I think one example is Samson. If you look in Judges 14, I have some highlighted failures of Samson, but if we think about it, Samson is he's just a dude that relates to a lot of us, that we sin, we keep failing, but he has so much potential. He was given all the potential in the world to carry out God's plan, yet his sin and his failures got in the way. If we look at it, just a couple of his failures, he went down to Timnah, the land of the Philistines, where he shouldn't have gone, right? And then he saw one of the daughters, and he came up and told his parents, I saw one of the daughters of the Philistines at Timnah. Now get her for me as my wife. So not only is he going down there where he shouldn't have been, but then he's saying, I like that girl. I want her to be my wife. Of the ungodly people that God told them not to take any wives, right? But yet he goes down there and he says, I want that one as my wife. And then the second failure is, but his father and mother said to him, is there not a woman among the daughters of your relatives or among all our people that you must go take a wife from the uncircumcised Philistines? But what does Samson say? He says, but Samson said to his father, get her for me, for she is right in my eyes. I don't know about you, but that doesn't sound like honoring his parents either. So he's going down there, he's taking a wife from where he shouldn't have, and then he's dishonoring his mother. He goes, and not just that, he then takes his parents. Look at this. Then Samson went down with his father and mother to Timnah. He brought his parents there. So he's already bringing people to the land of the ungodly. And this is the guy, right? He is extremely famous for the strength that God gave him. None of these actions so far have been to edify or strengthen the church or to grow the church or spread the gospel, right? Now you might say, oh, he's not spreading the gospel. The gospel would have been spread back then because they're spreading the future Messiah to come. So that's the gospel. So get right, noob. So then Samson then goes to Gaza, back to the land of the Philistines where he shouldn't have, and then he falls in love with another Philistine chick named Delilah. We know where Delilah is in the story arc of Samson. I think it's just right at the end, right? Like, it's just the final nail in the coffin. Like, you had to go pick Delilah, man, because Delilah's going to betray you. Well, if we look, then this is how God uses death to get through you. Judges chapter 16, verse 30. And Samson said, "Let me die with the Philistines." Then he bowed with all his strength, and the house fell upon the lords and upon all the people who were in it. So the dead whom he killed at his death were more than those whom he killed during his life. The guy famous for killing Philistines, like being the Philistine destroyer, right? Killed more during his death than all of his life. Now, we had revival, and Brother Kerry Nelson said something right after this that is just stuck with me. And it is, if God can't use you during your life, he will use you at your funeral. And that just stuck with me. Don't get in the way of God's will. Don't be Samson where he has to use you at your funeral to do what he wants. Be a vessel. Be used in God's will instead of in the way, right? So the first one is, remember this, the first one is to get through you. You don't want that, right? The second one is to get to you. I think a lot of us know of so many people that have had near-death experiences that it opened their eyes. I remember a guy coming to our church and talking about being on or on his motorcycle and coming close where he saw the light and he saw the light of Jesus, and that's what changed his life. You don't want to have to be so closed-minded in your eyes and so blind to the truth of God that you have to get your eyes opened at death. And I know there's certain people that think deathbed conversions aren't real, but I want to look at just the thief on the cross. I bet death kind of opened his eyes. Let's see. So one of the criminals railed against God, Jesus, saying, "Are you not the Christ? Save yourself and us." But the other one, the one we're talking about, the other one said, "Do you not fear God, since you are under the same sentence of condemnation? And we indeed justly, for we are receiving the due reward of our deeds. But this man has done nothing wrong." And he said, "Jesus, remember me when you come into your kingdom." And then Jesus said to him, "Truly, I say to you, today you will be with me in paradise." Now, some might say, "Oh, this guy already believed." But let's look. In Matthew 27, verse 44, "And the robbers," multiple, plural, "who were crucified with him also reviled him in the same way." Meaning, he was saying, if you're not the Christ, come on, do something. Save us, save yourself. Show us. This is the time to show us. And he realized his relationship with God or the lack of a relationship with God, and realized he needed Jesus. Open your eyes before it's too late. That way you can have a testimony at your funeral where they're talking about your dedication to serving the Lord, instead of having to say, "Yeah, he got saved at the end." Don't squeak into heaven barely. Do something with your life that is honoring and glorifying God. That way, when you meet heaven, or when you go to heaven, you meet Jesus face to face, he can say, "You did good. You did good. Well done, my faithful servant." Right? Don't you want that? Instead of, "Oh, you got in at the end." Right? And the last, so that one was to get to you. The last one is to get through to a few. Now, I have a couple examples. I think the first one I want to look at, though, is Lazarus. In John 11, 14, and 15, he says, Lazarus has died. And he's telling the disciples, Lazarus has died. And for your sake, I am glad I was not there, so that you may believe. Why? Because Lazarus was dead. He's actually glad that he wasn't there to heal him, so then he could show them what he's about to do, right? And he says the same thing when he's about to raise him from the dead. He says to Martha, "Did I not tell you that if you believed, you would see the glory of God?" So they took away the stone, and Jesus lifted up his eyes, and listen to this, said, "Father, I thank you that you have heard me. I know that you always hear me, but I said this on account of the people standing around, that they may believe that you sent me." They wouldn't have believed if he just went and healed them, right? But yet God had to bring Lazarus out of the picture to show everyone the miracle that Jesus was about to perform. And then he goes and raises the dead. He says, "Lazarus, come out." And Lazarus jumps out after he says, "Unbind him, let him go," to the cloth and linen that was holding him. So this is an example of, during Lazarus's death, you got all the disciples that it said earlier that he was glad that because of this, that you may believe. You got Martha and Mary and everyone else who was surrounding them, that he said, on account of the people standing around, that they may believe that you sent me. Why? Because of Lazarus's death. But then in chapter 12, verse 10, 11 really, so this is when everyone's trying to kill Lazarus again. That's pretty stupid. So the chief priests made plans to put Lazarus to death as well. But on account of him, many of the Jews were going away and believing in Jesus. So you got three groups of people and said, Jesus is the Messiah. Why? Because of this death that occurred. But most importantly, the death that I'll say got to more than a few is Jesus. Jesus had to die to get to us. The Messiah had to pay our ransom, had to pay the sin debt that we deserve to pay, that we could be forgiven and go to heaven. Because of him, we can be adopted as children of God. Isn't that awesome? That because of Jesus' death, he got to way more than a few. Use this life wisely. Don't waste life pushing everything to tomorrow or procrastinating. Accept Jesus now, so that at your funeral, when everyone's talking about you, they can talk about your testimony as an example of God using someone in this world. Use your life as an example of a servant of God, of a faithful servant that used their potential to serve and glorify the Lord that created them and saved them. Don't waste time. Don't push it off to tomorrow, because you're not guaranteed anything. If you're in the way of God's will, he can pull you out at any time. Accept Jesus today, because he is the only hope. He is salvation. God bless.